Yo, what's good, y'all? My name is Juan, and welcome back to the YouTube channel. Before we get straight into the video, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video with your friends. I'm trying to hit 100 subs, you feel me? But let's get straight to it. I feel like a lot of times during our struggles, we tend to put ourselves down for factors that we can't really control. Every moment of failure, delay, and weakness gets internalized and labeled as a personal flaw. And instead of giving ourselves grace during these situations, we always resort to telling ourselves that if we were stronger, smarter, we wouldn't be in this position in the first place. But that mindset doesn't really do much because at the end of the day, it only leads us to become our own harshest judges, even when it's the external factors that are working against us. Therefore, the point of this video is to challenge that with a different perspective. The notion that it was never you against you. It wasn't until recently that I realized this, but the whole idea of it's me against me, I'm my own worst enemy, is actually more destructive than it is helpful. Human beings don't live in vacuums. The circumstances that surround us are what shape us, even if we didn't ask for them. Whether that's past traumas, the environment we grew up in, or other external factors, we didn't choose that specific life. Therefore, if you didn't choose it, why take accountability for it? Because that mentality only leads you to blame yourself for the things you struggle with. Somewhere along our journeys, we were taught that if something within us exists, whether that being fear, destructive habits, or insecurities, it must have originated from us. But that's just not true. Many of the patterns that we face today were once survival mechanisms at one point. They formed not because we were weak, but because we had no choice but to endure something that we never asked for in the first place. Where am I going with this? Taking responsibility for healing does not equate to taking blame for the wound. There's a fine line between responsibility and self-condemnation. Responsibility says, something happened and I'm going to deal with it appropriately. Self-condemnation says, if my life were just normal, if I was a normal human being, none of this would have happened. One side leads to character development, the other only leads to shamefulness. So when people repeat the phrase, it's me against me, they have no discernment. They end up turning the self into the villain of their own story, although in reality, the self was only trying its best to survive. Adding on to that, the world we currently live in doesn't make this any better. We live in a society that only awards perfection while punishing vulnerability for the most part. Trying to live up to other people's expectations, having unresolved pain, or comparing yourself to others all compound into a burden that nobody wants to carry. And yet, when it's those types of external factors that slow us down, we always ask ourselves, what is wrong with me? And that question may seem introspective, but you can't really answer it. It neglects the fact that we are constantly navigating external forces that thrive on our insecurities, that thrive on our lowest moments. Now, when I say external forces, you might wonder what I'm referring to. And without thinking too deep into it, this is simply spiritual warfare. As we grow closer to God throughout our journeys, we steer away from the very one who kept us trapped in the first place. And that's what creates the resistance that holds us back. The Bible scripture repeatedly talks about how the evil one's tactics intensify not during our struggles, but during our ascension. And well, if you think about it, the enemy doesn't necessarily have to attack us when we're already at our lowest. Because when we're at our lowest, we're exactly where the enemy wants us to be. My point with this is that effort is only spent where progression is occurring. And if you don't understand the concept, think of it like the gym. Your ultimate goal is to get healthier and stronger, right? As you progressively get stronger though, the weight that you're using has to increase over time, creating more of a challenge for you. And what does that equate to? More resistance. It's not you against you, it's you against the external force pushing against you. And in this scenario, the external force refers to the weights. And this concept applies to our journeys with God. As we learn more about God's truth, the devil will try tempting us with lies. And as we gain clarity in God's salvation, he tries leading us into states of doubtfulness. So when old habits return, or when we start to feel doubtful about ourselves, it's not because we're going against ourselves, it's because something out there doesn't want us to continue progressing. That's why your choice of verbiage matters, because when you say, it's me against me, you unconsciously take part in the devil's scheme to keep you trapped. But God's love and grace are what detach us from that bond. In the Bible, specifically 1 John chapter 4, verse 4, it states, "He who is in me is greater than he who is in the world." As long as you keep God by your side, nothing can be against you. Now, understand this though. That does not remove responsibility from your life. It reframes it. Accountability and growth, they do not require you to degrade yourself. And once you realize that resistance is external, you stop confusing struggle with failure. Trying and stumbling does not mean that you're a screw up. It means that you're a human in a non-neutral environment. So while you may not be responsible for the chains put on you, you are more than welcome to participate in their removal. And that participation is not rooted in shame, but rather grace. Because grace acknowledges the reality of your situation. Yes, this hurt you. Yes, it shaped you, but it's not who you ultimately are. So remember, the battle has never been you against you. It was who you once had to be in order to survive and who you were always meant to become. And as you move toward that ladder, remember, when it gets challenging, it's not because you're doing something wrong, it's because you're doing something right. I appreciate y'all watching the video, for real. It means a lot to me. And make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all later. God bless y'all.